Once, in a small town by the sea, there lived a man named Marcus. He was not the richest or the strongest man in the town, but he carried a quiet strength within him. People often came to him for advice, and though his words were simple, they carried deep meaning. Marcus was a student of Stoicism, though he never used the word himself. To him, it was simply the art of living wisely. Marcus had not always been this way. In his younger years, he had been restless, chasing after wealth and praise, always worried about what others thought of him. Then one day, he found an old book in the market. It was worn and dusty, but the words inside spoke to him like a voice from another time. The book was written by Seneca, a philosopher who had lived long ago. The words were simple, but powerful. They spoke of control, of focusing only on what was within one's power, and letting go of the rest. At first, Marcus did not fully understand. How could one simply let go of worry? How could a man face hardship without fear? But he kept reading, and slowly, the teachings began to take root. He learned that wisdom was not about knowing many things, but about understanding a few essential truths deeply. One of the first lessons Marcus embraced was the idea of control. He realized that most of his suffering came from trying to control things outside his power: the weather, the opinions of others, even the past. Stoicism taught him to focus only on what he could control: his thoughts, his actions, his choices. This simple shift changed everything. When the rains ruined his crops, he no longer raged against the sky. Instead, he focused on what he could do: repair what was damaged, plant anew, and learn from the experience. Another lesson was the practice of reflection. Every evening, Marcus would sit by the fire and ask himself 3 questions. What did I do well today? What could I have done better? Did I act in line with my principles? This was not about punishing himself for mistakes, but about learning. Over time, these small reflections helped him grow wiser, not just in thought, but in action. One day, a traveler came to the town. He was wealthy, dressed in fine clothes, and carried himself with pride. He mocked Marcus for his simple life, saying, "Why do you live like this? You could have so much more." Marcus only smiled and replied, "I have enough. And more than that, I have peace." The traveler scoffed and left, but his words did not trouble Marcus. He knew that wealth and status were not the measures of a good life. True wealth was inner strength, the ability to face hardship without crumbling. Years passed, and the town faced many trials: storms, sickness, even war. Through it all, Marcus remained steady. People noticed. They saw that while others panicked or grew bitter, he faced each challenge with calm resolve. They began to ask him how he did it. Marcus never gave long speeches. Instead, he shared small stories, simple lessons. He told them about the Stoic practice of preparing for the worst. This did not mean living in fear, but imagining hardships before they came, so that if they did, one was ready. "If you accept that loss is possible," he said, "you will not be destroyed when it happens." He also spoke of the importance of virtue, not as some grand idea, but as daily practice. To be honest when it was easier to lie. To be kind even when others were not. To do what was right not for reward, but because it was right. These were the marks of wisdom, he said. One winter, a great storm struck the town. The waves crashed over the walls, and many homes were destroyed. People wept, clutching the ruins of their lives. Marcus, though his own house was damaged, stood among them and said, "We cannot stop the storm, but we can choose how we face it." He was the first to start rebuilding, not with anger, but with quiet determination. Others followed. By the time spring came, the town had not just recovered, it had grown stronger. And Marcus, now an old man, was no longer just a quiet figure in the corner. He was seen as a guide, though he never claimed to be one. When asked the secret of his strength, he would simply say, "I learned from those who came before me, and I practice every day. The story of Marcus is not extraordinary in the way of kings and battles, but it is a story of wisdom, the kind that grows slowly, like a tree rooted in daily practice. Stoicism, for him, was not a philosophy of books and debates. It was a way of life, a way to cultivate wisdom by focusing on what truly matters, by accepting what cannot be changed, and by striving always to be better. And so, if you wish to cultivate wisdom, remember Marcus. Remember that it begins with small steps. Control what you can. Reflect on your actions. Prepare your mind for hardship. Choose virtue even when it is hard. And above all, practice. For wisdom is not found in a single moment of brilliance, but in the quiet, steady effort of a lifetime. The sea will always have storms. Life will always have trials. But with Stoicism as your guide, you can face them with strength, with clarity, and with wisdom. That is the lesson Marcus left behind, and it is a lesson worth remembering.